I was 18 years old, just barely. I had just graduated from high school, and I had a small scholarship to a Catholic university in Albuquerque. And it was then at that time called St. Joseph's, and I don't know what it's called now, or even if it's still there. My parents drove me. I did not have my own car, of course. And they drove me down to Albuquerque, and we toured the campus and set up whatever paperwork needed to be done. I had already been accepted, but there was some financial stuff that had to be gone over. And it was run by priests and nuns. And so it was just an extension of my already 13 years of Catholic school in that respect. And the nuns were very strict. There was no what would you say? I know the word I'm searching for. I just can't pull it out. Fraternizing with boys. Boys and girls were kind of kept separate, and every once in a while we would have a school dance or something like that. But they were very strict about fraternizing and flirting and those kinds of things. But anyway, I managed to go for a year to that college. And I think you would want to know how that felt or how I dealt with it or whatever. Is that correct, honey? Okay. Well, I actually was very excited because being the oldest of that many children, I had a lot of responsibility and a lot of duties that I felt like were never finished. And so it was an opportunity to see what it's like when you don't live under the roof with your parents who need your help constantly. If I had to guess, because I was beginning to make waves at that point in my growing up, I think they were probably glad to say goodbye to me. My mother more so than my dad. My mother and I had a very hard time getting along, so I think mother was probably glad to say goodbye to me. And also, I look back now and I think, bless her heart, because she was very bright and she didn't have the opportunity to go to college. But she let me go. She didn't try to hold me back or anything. But one thing she did say was that I said something about the scholarship, and she said words to this effect. Your dad and I had to kick in money for that. You're not actually paying your own way. So it was like she couldn't quite let me forget. Leaving home, it broadened me to think outside the box for the first, well, it wasn't the first time in my life, but to think outside the box of small town, Catholic family, Catholic school, works mentality. Are you familiar with the idea of earning salvation, earning heaven through good works? Are you familiar with that idea? Okay. Well, the Catholic Church of that era, which when I was that age was early 60s, 1960s, stressed not so much the saving grace of Jesus Christ and what he did on the cross for our salvation, that he died for our sins. The stress was upon, if you work hard enough and do enough good works, you can earn your way to heaven. And so going outside of that to look at it from other perspectives was very good for me, because I never felt like I could do enough. Not just for my parents or God or society or as the oldest Vogel kid there. It was never enough. But besides that, I would say that the majority of my emotions at that time were negative ones, resentment, bitterness, almost a victim mentality, although we didn't use those words then, but like, poor me, why do I have to do all this? Why do I have all these responsibilities? And besides that, I had lost my dearest sister, Vicky, to the convent. I was 14 and she was 13. And And that set me up for a big emotional crisis. And it's not her fault. I don't mean to imply that. But I am a totally different person because I have gained forgiveness and wisdom and joy and understanding. I have been given grace by God and mercy. And yes, I am a different person. You took me back, far, 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 far back. Yeah, how many years ago? Let's see, 40, 60 years ago. That's a long time ago, yeah. Well, I left home sort of in the 9th grade for school. It was like I was home for holidays and weekends. I mean, not weekends, what's the word? Summers. And so it wasn't really like I left until I graduated from high school. Then I really left. So, but the experience of leaving every year when the summer was over, those 4 years when I was in high school, was pretty much the same every time as when I left finally in 1964. And it was, I would say, you're gonna make me cry here, or my memories are making me cry. It was traumatic in many ways. Very hard for me to leave. But I felt like I was leaving for a good reason. I really wanted to do something important and big and good. And it felt like that's what I was going to do. And of course, we do all kinds of good things, but it's never as big as the dream. I left on the train. The family took me to the train station in Roswell, and we were all bawling, especially me. And I got on that train and I got a window seat and I just waved. It was just a 2-car train. It wasn't a big train. And I waved the whole time until I couldn't see them anymore. I was going to the convent in Chicago. Chicago was the place where these sisters had they call it the mother house, which means it was the place where it started, where it was founded, where the community was founded. So that's why I went to Chicago, because that's where the sisters' training place was. And I really never wanted so much to be a nun. I wanted to be more like a missionary. I wanted to be a priest. I really wanted to be a pastor of a parish, and hopefully in a really poor, I wanted to serve the poor and the people who are left out in the world, you know? That's my lifelong desire and dream, you know? And so I went to be trained by the sisters who taught me in elementary school. And it was just real different from what I expected. You know, like I usually tell this story that the first 10 years I was with them, I tried to be like them because I was the one that was different. You know, they were all of the same culture. They all spoke the Lithuanian language, and I was just like in a foreign land in a lot of ways. And really, from living with them, I learned a lot. So then the next 10 years, I tried to make them like me. They called me the radical because I was always trying to change everything and make it different, you know, because I wanted it to fit what I thought it should be instead of what they thought it should be. And then the last couple years that I was with them, I just said, forget this. You know, we don't match. We're not a good matchup. But I had the opportunity when I was with them. I got a good education. I got my master's degree. I was a principal of a school for 10 years. I was a teacher for many years of children and adults. I never was a pastor of a parish, but I did get to practically run a parish in the absence of a pastor that was able. You know, he was there and he let me run things, and I loved that.
I've had a great life before I was there and after I was there and after I left there, you know. Once, on my way back from Roswell, we were driving through New Mexico, and I just looked around and I thought, oh my God, my poor New Mexico, it's so poor and so brown, and there's no trees, and there's all these little houses, and everything is so small, it's so poor. And I thought, I really did grow up in a place that's different from the rest of the world. And the people that I'm living with now, they have no idea what my life is really like, what my roots are. So I made up my mind that when I got back, I was going to start telling them. When I got back, I was going to start. And I think that's when I became kind of the reformer instead of the follower, you know? And so I've always been extremely proud to be a New Mexican, proud of my roots, my heritage. And by then I was finally ready to start acting like I was proud and sharing it, you know? But I never felt like I was home there. No, never. Till I came back to New Mexico. Then I felt like I was home.
I can see I'm not in the middle, but then I am a little off-centered my whole life. Well, the first time I left home, I wasn't excited. I just went to college for a year and came home and lived at Jan's house. But when I left home was in 1967. I'd met Pete at college, and he asked me to marry him summer after my freshman year, and we were going to get married the following, well, I can't remember. We were going to get married in 1967 in August. And it was the height of the Vietnam War, and Pete joined the Army and went to officer training school and got halfway through and decided he didn't want to be an officer. So he quit, and they sent him to Germany. So because at that time you could go with your husbands to Germany, Pete says, let's get married before I go over there, and then you can come and live there. And I was like, me? I don't want to travel all the way around the world. You know, I had left Roswell for the first time the year before to go meet his parents. And that was the first time I had ever gone by myself any place, first time I had ever flown on an airplane. So here I am, you know, contemplating going to Germany and living on the economy for a year. And I was a timid, small town girl, nothing. I didn't know what I was doing or how I ever survived it. But we got married in June on his birthday, so we'd never forget his anniversary. That was his reasoning. And he flew over there first, and then I met him with what little household stuff I had brought with us, never dreaming that I'd get over there and there's not even towels or sheets or, you know, anything. I was ignorant. I didn't know what I was doing or why I was doing it. So he met my plane, and he had rented us a house that we had to share the bathroom and the kitchen with German people. And the Oma and Appa, that's Grandma and Grandpa, they were snoops, and they would go and look through our stuff while we were gone, and it was just awful. And so she found out, as I did, that I was pregnant. And I didn't know what she really thought because it was all in German, you know, and it was just awful. And so I used it as an excuse that we had to move. And so we moved into brand new high-rise apartment buildings over there, and it was mostly GIs living in it at the time. It was still on the economy, but it wasn't on the base or anything. So then things got a little bit better until the baby came. And I was in Germany. I was pregnant by myself, never having a kid, people assume that when you have 11 brothers and sisters, you know everything that there is to know about childbirthing and childbirth breathing classes. And, you know, it was just me in Germany pregnant. And I went through the whole pregnancy, went to Italy, Switzerland, Austria, pregnant. I got to the Colosseum in Rome, and the first thing I asked was, where's the bathroom? Because that's all you do when you're pregnant, is pee. Then one day in May, I was in a German store. I'd ridden the bus downtown, and we're there, and this German clerk kept patting my stomach and yelling in German, Kinder, Kinder, Kinder this, Kinder that, you know, and I'm just like, yeah, okay. We didn't know what she was talking about. But that night, my water broke, and what she was talking about was, you're fixing to have your baby. And it was 3 weeks early, you know, so I didn't believe it, you know, not me. And I don't remember, blackout parts I really can't handle remembering, and I don't remember how I got from breaking water to a army ambulance on my way to Nuremberg, which seemed like forever, but it was probably 45 minutes away. And it was one of those green MASH army ambulances, you know, no amenities, you just sit on the hard bench and have contractions. So I had the baby, and it was Tahoe. Didn't know how to be a mother, didn't know how to recover from having a baby, and so to throw me off, really, they told me he was going to have a complete blood transfusion because his belly room was so high that he could die. And I didn't have anyone to consult with because Pete was in the Army doing Army stuff, and I was with these Army nurses that, so the nice lieutenant doctor came and said, no, he's not that jaundiced to have that high of a count. And as I remember telling it was the stuff they add to their blood to get the count up. They had used double the amount, so it was only half as bad as they thought it was. So I traveled across the ocean, lived on the economy in Germany, and had a baby all by myself.
I left home after I married Pat. We were both juniors in college, and we moved to Port Alice to go to school. And I was pregnant. So I dropped out of school second semester. And it was the beginning of August, and it was hotter than blazes. And we lived in a little 32-foot trailer, and the air didn't work. It was too hot. We didn't have any insulation. And then so Pat went to work every day, and we only had one car at the time. And I didn't have any cash. I mean, I wasn't on the checking account, so I really couldn't do anything. But it was so hot. But it was fun being a newlywed, I have to say that. But it was still just horrid as far as temperature was concerned. And then that winter, there was a horrible blizzard in the area. And we had left Roswell after Christmas and started home. And we could not see the sides of the road. But we would see the fence posts, and we would drift back onto the road. And we ended up at a place called Last Chance Bar on the county line, which was usually a 30-minute drive, and we'd been on the road 2.5 hours. So it was a Sunday, but they had opened up to let people in who were stranded. And we had gotten a bedspread for Christmas, and that was the only blanket that we had in the car. So that taught me a lot about traveling in the winter. But we got back to our trailer, and everything was frozen. We had no plumbing for 2 weeks. But we had a friend in the park, so we would go over and jump the fence and shower and get warm. But it was an experience that I never thought I'd have. But everybody else would say, oh yeah, well, you were pregnant, so you got to sleep on the foosball table, not the foosball, the pool table. And everybody else had to sit in chairs. You know, the sisters, they still tease me about it. So it was an interesting first year, and we had a tornado. So that first year was just, But it was the first time I really realized how important the family was to me, because when I left home, I was ready to get out of that house. They stayed there where I went to school and worked full time and went to school and was still expected to pull my weight. And so I was ready to get out of that house. And I look back and think that if I was the person I was today, which nobody is, the difference between 20 and 70, it's huge. But if I was the person I was today, I think because of the way that we were raised, that you said yes to men. I mean, your husband was the answer. You did what he wanted you to do. And I look with envy at couples now where they both cook, where they take on responsibilities. And I had no idea when I got married that there wouldn't be a partnership. And many people my age will say that. But I don't know what else to say. No, I was not prepared. There were many things I wish I had been told or taught, other than cooking and cleaning and laundry and that kind of stuff. But I look back now and think that Mom and Dad probably didn't know how to teach us that. You just followed the rules and you didn't question them, and they did that. They followed the rules and they didn't question them. But it would have been nice to be told that spouses fight and it's okay. I was not prepared. I had no idea what it was like to be even with Pat. We were on our own. So yeah, I had no idea what to expect. Going to college away from home as a wife, you don't have the same experience of getting to know people the way you would if you were like in a dorm room or an apartment or something like that. So, I often think that I probably should have had some experience before I left home as a wife, like you did, like Valerie did. You younger kids have it smart.
I left home and I hitchhiked. I left home with 3 guys. I told Mom and Dad I was going to go cross country, and it was pretty devastating to them. But I was excited, and I was also scared shitless too, because these guys I was with, I only knew them but a few days, but I was excited for the adventure. And I was kind of mad at Dad too, because when I told him what I wanted to do, he told me this wasn't right. What was he going to tell his friends? And that just, I thought, well, I'm going to do it more than ever now, because I'm going to show you who's more important, your friends or me. And so those were the thoughts that were going through my head that first day that I left. But we drove cross country and we pooled our money, and it was 1971 at the time. So it was the hippie, drug, sexual revolution, and it was pretty crazy. But there were a lot of people on the streets and traveling and hitchhiking, and so we drove up to California and stayed there for a while, and then we drove on to Washington State, and I stayed there for almost a year. I lived in communes and teepees, and I learned a lot. Not what to do. It was freeing in one respect, and it made me realize how much family meant in the other. I kind of had no boundaries, which was kind of scary, because being raised the way we were, we had nothing but boundaries. So I didn't know how to take care of myself in that respect. I was too sexually active. I did experiment with drugs, but I didn't do any heavy drugs. I smoked pot. I did try LSD. I did did try cocaine, but I didn't like any of them because I didn't like being out of control. I was around people who shot up heroin and cocaine, but I never had any desire to do that because when they would shoot up, it was like they were just totally nothing. They just disappeared, and I found that to be pretty sad. But it was fun. We went to different places, and to earn money, I would plant strawberries in Washington and trees, and we built a shanty in the forest of the state of Washington because there was a lot of old logging places up there, so you could go in and take over empty buildings and stuff. And living in a commune was kind of an odd experience for me because in the one I was in, anything was okay. I mean, you had kids that they could teach, anybody could teach them, and they slept wherever they want, they ate whatever they want, they were sexually active at 10 and 11 and 12 years old, and I found that really disconcerting being raised a Catholic. It's a wide eye opener there. I'm trying to think of all these weird things. I went to a concert like Woodstock for 3 days, and that was crazy. I don't know how many people were there. There's thousands and thousands, and it rained a lot because it was in Washington, and it was muddy, but people still sang and danced and bathed in the river. Of course, I did disappoint mom and dad quite a bit, but I was ready to come home in about a year and a half to start living what I thought was the normal life. You know, you get married, you have kids, and that would be everything. But I felt freedom for the first time when I left home. And I also realized how blessed we were that we had a family, because a lot of the kids that I ran into, they didn't have families. I forget that was a part of my life. Yeah, I do. I forget all the different chapters I have because I'm so involved in this chapter right now that I forget. But it shaped who I am. Okay, so you want me to start? Okay. Well, I have been thinking about this, and it was actually difficult for me to remember the first time I left home because I did it probably 3 times during the age of 18 to 19. But the first time I thought I was really going someplace with my life was moving to Tucson, where Julie lived with her first husband, Jeff. And I thought, well, I'll just go out there and see what it's like, and maybe I'll just stay, because I was so ready to do something else. And I stayed with her for probably about 5 weeks and was introduced to things that were really not good. You know, they were fun at the time. I mean, you could get into a bar in Tucson when you were 19, and I just pretended like I was 19. They didn't even ask for an ID. They just let you in. And those bars were filled with handsome men. I mean, that was the thing, you know? Oh my God, look at all these good-looking guys. I mean, you didn't see that in Roswell, you know? And so a door opened for me into a world of the unknown. And what I learned about myself is I was extremely easily influenced. You know, it was like never having been taught what your basic rights were as a woman, to be able to say no or not do anything that you don't want to do. That wasn't something I learned until it was too late. Then I ran out of money, so my boyfriend from Roswell at the time actually came and picked me up. And from then on, I never left Roswell again until I married Steven. But I did leave the house a second time to live with a friend of mine in a house that she had rented. And I worked at a drugstore, Mitchell's drugstore, and I had 3 paychecks that I could basically do whatever I wanted to with. And I basically did, you know. I bought clothes. I mean, I never had money to buy clothes. And I'd buy clothes and we'd party and we'd do whatever we wanted to. And that didn't really work out. I mean, it was an okay place to start, but it was not a healthy place for me to be because of her relationship with her boyfriend. So I moved back home, and, you know, my mom never wanted me to leave, I don't think. I think she wanted me to stay there forever because I was the worker bee. And I took care of the kids and I did the things that she didn't want to do. It was a period of time during my mom's life when she was finding herself. And she did that. Every day she was gone, and I was the one to pick up the slack. And so I know it was difficult for her when I left home. But I'll be honest with you, at that point in my life, I didn't give a shit, you know. But I was bound and determined that if and when the next time I left home, it was going to be forever. And I did. I left home and I moved into a house that had a guy and a married couple, him and then another guy. So I moved in with them, basically him, but did not tell mom and dad that because they would not have approved of that, me living in sin, so to speak. And that was a good experience. I mean, the people, we were all into drugs and alcohol. That's just the way that it was. And we were creative. We made jewelry, we made candles, we made macrame, and that was probably some of the funnest times during my young life. But like I said before, with the life of these people being based on partying, and that's a lot of what happened there, it became kind of destructive. And the reason that it did, like I said, is because I didn't know how to say, no, I don't want to do this. This isn't what I want. I don't want to do this anymore. And so I just kind of played along like I was in a role almost. And I did things I'm not ashamed of, but if I had to do them again, I wouldn't do them. And I stayed there for quite some time. I think it was about a year and a half. And then I met Steven, and my life changed drastically at that point. But my whole thing about leaving home is that sometimes you can't do it once. Sometimes it takes a while to get that done. And it takes figuring out what you want. And I didn't know that then. And it took me a really, really long time to figure that out. I met people that I wouldn't have met if I played the safe person that a lot of people play. You know, I did things, like I said, I'm not ashamed of them, but if I had to do them again, I wouldn't do it. My life has been pretty interesting, except for that some of the fun parts were kind of dangerous. Wow. I was so young. I turned 16 on July 14th and I got married. I turned 17 on July 14th and I got married on July 24th. I was 17 years old. I was barely 17 years old. But I was pregnant. And that's what you did in those days. You know, scared shitless. I would have said that then, but I can say it now. I didn't talk that way when I was 17. So yeah, but I was gonna have a baby and I got married and moved out to California. Brand new out of the crib. It was scary. I was trying to think of what else you wanted me to know. It was scary. I don't know what else to say. I guess I was a little bit excited, but I was scared, you know? But I was excited because I was going to have a baby. Little did I know it's 17. But I was excited because we grew up with babies. It wasn't like I was scared of having a baby, because we grew up with babies. I sometimes wonder how I did it, though. It's a totally new world, though, now than it was then. It's a totally new world. So yeah, it was pretty shocking. But I did go to school. I went to the pregnant minors program there where I was, and I think I had a vehicle, and I think I only went like 3 days a week or something like that. And so I graduated, and I got a high school diploma. But I was homesick almost all the time. And back in those days, I sound like an old lady. Back in the day, we didn't have cell phones, and long distance phone calls were expensive. And so you just didn't pick up the phone and call, and I mean, Mom, she still had 5 kids at home, or 6, 5 kids at home. And so she was still being a mom. And so I didn't talk to anybody at home very often, and I was homesick. And I was every Sunday. It was like no Sunday dinner for me, And Randy, he was from a small family, so it meant nothing to him for it just to be the two of us. I missed the community of our family. And holidays were the worst. Horrible. My first Christmas, I cried. Randy, we opened presents Christmas Eve, and that was really cool and a novelty. We never did that at our house. And then I wake up Christmas morning, and there was nothing. I mean, there were no kids, there were no presents to wrap, there was nothing. I mean, Randy, he was still in bed. And I'm just like, and so even having a baby, it fills a void, but it's not, well, you were there, you know what it's like being away from family. Yeah. So, but I did it. I mean, I did not have a choice. I probably did, Makaela. I think if it had been horrible, if it had been hell, I probably could have called Mom and Dad, and they would have figured something out, but it would have had to be horrible. Randy would have had to beat me or run around on me, not just, I don't like this, and, I'm homesick and I made a mistake. That's a mistake you can't undo. There's no undoing that mistake. And I knew I just had to do it. So I guess little innocent little crybaby that I was, because I cried a lot. I basically just pulled myself up by my bootstraps and I did it. Thank God I knew how to keep house. Thank God I knew how to take care of a baby. I didn't really know how to have a relationship. I was too young, but I tried. We were too young, and he had his ideas and I had mine, and it was in 1974 and the women's movement was just starting, and I could feel in me the need to be more than what I was. I was like, I need more. There's got to be more to life than just this. And he took it that I didn't want to be a mom. And it's like, it's not that. But I could feel in me the need in me to be more than what I was. And I had no one to help me with that. I mean, it was just me. I had no one to help me with that. So I just managed. I don't know how. I just did. First time I left home. I thought about this a long time ago, so I have to remember. I was super excited to leave home. I was wanting to be independent and free and start my own life, so I was super excited. I
I got a scholarship that waived out-of-state tuition, so I went to Texas Tech, and it made it a lot cheaper than staying in New Mexico. And I had 2 friends that were going, so I was just super excited for the adventure. And I was rooming with a friend of mine from high school, and so I didn't have any hesitation about leaving home. Mom and Dad were very supportive of me going. They helped me financially and just kind of let me go and do my thing, you know. Back in those days, we didn't have a cell phone, obviously, but we talked like once a week with a calling card. And they didn't like hound me about my grades or medal or anything. They just kind of let me be independent, and I liked that. My roommate, she talked to her mom every day, and I thought it was so strange. It's like, what do you talk about every day? But they're more like I'm with my girls now. I get it, but your grandma and I weren't buddies. You know, like I always felt like your grandma and I sort of clashed. Like I never felt like my mom liked me very much. Well, she probably didn't, to be 100% honest. But I always wanted her to, like I wanted her approval. It's so complicated because I loved her and liked her, and I wanted her to love me and like me. But it's so interesting. It's like I looked up to her, but at the same time I didn't, because I was annoyed and hurt a lot. And then one day I just kind of thought about it, and I was like, oh my God, she has 12 children. 12. 3 times as many as me. And there's some days where it's like, I can't handle any more drama. It's like, I can't have one more bad thing happen in any of my kids' lives. You know, it's just like, everyone be fine. Just like everything be fine. And so, you know, she was probably just like, you know, leave me alone. She was probably just damn done. And if you think about all the things that happened to her and Dad as parents, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, all the divorces, well, all the marriages for one thing, all the dating. Can you imagine all the dating? Pregnancies before marriage, when that was really taboo. I mean, Kathy got pregnant, and then Betsy got pregnant and moved to California, and that's after, you know, Julie hitchhiked across the United States. It's like all of these things. And as a parent, all of those things worry you. You know, so it's like with perspective, I can look back and go, she was just tired. And it's okay, you know? And so I have a lot more compassion for her. And I think I was really lucky because, well, I tell this to my friends all the time, that I have 8 mothers. I have my mother, and I have my 7 sisters. And it really was like growing up with 8 mothers, because, you know, they all took care of me. I mean, I went to spend summers with Jan, and, you know, I talked about Babs helping out my mom all the time. It's like all of them. Julie used to drive me everywhere. And Tish was like our mom. She did a lot of the cooking when I was little, and the babysitting and stuff. And so it's like I had this whole tribe of people raising me when my mom was just too tired to do it.